Hey guys, so we're gonna create some viewpoints. Viewpoints are pretty useful for a variety of different reasons. One of them being that you can use them to create animations. Uh, Another one for saving um, different views within the model that you can quickly jump to. This is useful for a couple reasons. One is just general navigation, but another one would be if you're in the building, if you have a number of quick views that you can leverage while you're in that meeting, it'll make it a little bit easier. I mean, you can easily fall back on those in case you get a little turned around inside the model. You don't know where you're at, then you can simply click on a well-defined viewpoint and then jump to it really quickly and then move from there. And something that I like to do, and we're not really going to cover this, but I'll do, a path from start to the end with viewpoints. So, starting at the front of the building, kind of moving through the entrance into maybe the office area, then down into the locker area, then the warehouse. So, moving from one point to another through viewpoints, and then you can actually run an animation on that, and that way you can stick to a path. But the cool thing with viewpoints is at any moment you can stop it, look around, and then go back into the animation. So it's really useful, and we're going to start off with viewpoints. I do have a video out there on how to create animations. I may recreate another one, so check that out if you want to learn how to create an animation. But for this one, we're just going to stick to some basic viewpoints. This is really useful as well, and I think some people don't know about it. But if you don't have any model to work with to start off with, you could either go into Revit, export out NWC. You just got to make sure you have the exporter, or you can append Revit models, which will create an NWC within Revit. I mean within Navisworks. But if you don't have you don't have a model created or something you can reference, you can open up Navisworks, come up here to the big N, and we're using 2019 because I'm having trouble with my 2020 version. So that I think that N may still be there, or it may be uh, have changed since Revit pushed that change, but I'm not entirely sure if that's been updated or not. So in the meantime, click on that big N. And when you go down to open and that flyout, you can go down to sample files, click on that. This will open and you have a number of sample files in there. The Enviro Dome, Ice Stadium, and the Snowmobile. The Snowmobile is just an item that you can kind of fly around and explode in different ways. And funny, it's actually the biggest one, which is kind of weird. So we're just gonna pick one of these. We're gonna go with the Ice Stadium. That one's kind of cool, and we'll go ahead and open that. Something I like to do is come up here to the Home tab and make sure that my selection is set correctly when I'm in this model. And you'll see it'll actually select whole groups of elements based off of where you change or based off of what you have selected here. And if you've worked in Navisworks for some time, you'll notice in the selection tree it has a hierarchy in there in the selection tree. When you drill down into an NWD or any file, it has a hierarchy of elements, and this can drill all the way down into like the materials of the element. And by changing the select and search, it will actually affect that and choose the elements at different. It'll drill down into that element at different points depending on what you have set there. This model's not the best because you won't get all the properties from it. You can see this roof's kind of split up into these different panels. But we're not going to be using the model in that way. But keep that in mind. I think that's a useful tip just to remember. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create some viewpoints. We'll start off with this one out here just to show you, and then I'll show you some of the default viewpoints that are in there and kind of how we would use it. So this would be essentially our starting view or something. It's worth having people, if people are using the same NWF, it may be worth setting this up so that every time you open the Navis model, it's always at the same perspective. That just makes it a little bit more easier for the people that are going to actually be, getting into this model. Say you're creating an NWD, sharing it. You don't want yourself to be like in the middle of the model. So in the Viewpoint tab, there's Save Viewpoint. And if you drop that down, there's some other options. Record. We're just going to focus on the Save Viewpoint. So we can click on that, and you can see that pops up over here. Now, these can be named exactly the same as other viewpoints. I wouldn't recommend doing that. So like this one, we'll call this starting view. And now, we're flying around the model. We're kind of looking at different stuff. And when we're finished, we just click on this, and then we save the model. Or we create that NWD file. And just to kind of show you what animations are about, if you drill down into an animation, it does have viewpoints in there. And you can click on these and go to the different viewpoints. And so that's all it's doing, is it's going from one point to another point when you're creating an animation. Something else I like to do is, and as you saw kind of in this animation, sections. Sections are pretty useful, just getting it set up. So, set up and save so you can drill down into each level. So like here we have multiple levels. So what we can do is section it, over to this area. And then so we can focus just on, this west side of the building. So to turn on sections, you'd have to go to your Viewpoint tab over here to enable sections. And then you have a number of options in here. You can turn on multiple planes, which is what we're going to do. Now, first, what I want to do with this plane is I do want to align it to the top. And then I want to pull that up a bit. Make sure that little gizmo shows up. So I want to show like that first floor over here in the on the west side of this stadium. And then what I want to do is actually section this down. So I'm going to come up here and turn on another plane. And then I'm going to select that second plane. I'm going to orient that to the back. And then what we can do is kind of rotate this around. And actually, that's a good spot. That's where I kind of want it. So we'll leave that one. We'll turn on a third plane. We'll orient that to the right. We'll pull this out, kind of see where we're at. And then we'll turn on a fourth plane. Orient that to, actually, real quick, we'll activate that fourth plane. Orient that to the left. Pull this out. Now, you can also create like a section box. Now, we're in planes. You can do a box, and you can scale that box. But for this instance, we're not going to do that. We're going to be using planes. And so we'll switch back to this one. And what we can do, well, actually, let's turn on one more plane, and we'll do the front. So right there. We'll switch back to that first plane. And then now we're going to save a viewpoint. So we'll come here, save that viewpoint. We'll just call this first floor. And then I like to click out of it and click back into it. We can even turn this on and then click back into it. It'll enable sectioning again. So now with that enabled, we'll come back in here, pull this up into the second floor. Save that viewpoint. Second floor. Third floor. Fourth. And then fifth. So when you're navigating the model, let's say you're doing a coordination review or a clash review, a weekly coordination meeting, you're sitting there with the client, you're talking about a clash, you can quickly jump to a floor plan, like the first floor, second floor, third, fourth, and then fifth. Quickly jump to those views, and then from here we can start to look at them. Now we could have created this. We could, if we wanted like it to kind of look like a plan view, we could orient it like this. Come up here to perspective, change that. Let's switch over. We'll switch our tool over here, and then switch to your select tool. Get out of the walk command. When you're in the walk command, it won't let you switch from perspective. When you're out of that, switch to orthographic, and now you have a plan view, and then you can save that. So we can say fifth floor orthographic. So you can quickly navigate the model. If you identify a coordination issue, you want to see it on the fifth floor orthographic view. Quickly jump to that. You want to see it from this perspective view. You can jump from it by clicking that viewpoint. Then in the walk command, kind of walking around that model, talking about that coordination issue with the team. But it's a way to quickly navigate the model without having to, on the fly while you're in a meeting, creating sections and stuff, because that can get overwhelming, and you may spend a lot of time just getting the right views. So if you pre-plan that before those meetings, or just have those in there in general when you set up the model in the first place, they're just useful. They'll allow you to be a little bit more prepared in those meetings. They'll go a little bit more efficiently. The other thing is these cut lines here. You can see they're red. So if to change that, we actually have to go into the options. So back up in the big N. And again, this may be files, right underneath the N, kind of like Revit. I'm not sure if that's the case in 2020. Click on options. And then in interface, go to sectioning. And then from here, you can enable it or disable it. And then you can change the color to whatever you want. So if we want green, we can click green and then come down here and press OK. And then now those cut lines are green now. So that's up to you. That's just one of those extra things in case you want them. If you don't want cut lines, you can remove them out of there. But it is an option when you're setting up those views. Again, this is sections. You can go in here and hide certain things. So we can come into this view, right click, hide. Actually, let's switch over here to the select command, hide, save that viewpoint, and now we have a viewpoint with those hidden elements. Another cool thing is when you're navigating the model and say this column or whatnot doesn't actually go here, you can select on that column, go up to Items tool, move it, and we may need to find that move command. There it is. You know, move it over to where it needs to be, and then we can save that viewpoint. You know, if that is the case, then it's probably best to do that in the authoring tool that created those elements. But if you need to do something on the fly, it's there. You can do it. I've been in a meeting where we were navigating it, and we didn't have much control over what the consultant was sending us, but we were kind of flying through the model, and we're finding just random pipes going through the ceiling in front of refrigerators, in front of doorways, just random pipes kind of going all over the place because they did not coordinate those efforts. Exit signs sitting on the floor, security devices on the floor. So, on the fly, you can hide those things. But if you want to set up views and whatnot where those things are already taken care of, you can do that. And then it's again probably best if those are updated within the authoring tool. It's something, if you are in that position where you're finding stuff like that, now you can have a meeting with them, identify those things in Revit, on drawings. You can even do that in the Navis model. You can highlight those things through the review tab. You can draw a cloud or an ellipse, a number of tools that you can highlight those elements. So you can come in here and say, hey, what's going on here? This isn't where it's supposed to be. And it'll actually create a viewpoint for you. So if we switch out of that and then go back to viewpoint 2, you can see that it keeps that view oriented the way it's supposed to. It keeps the element shifted, and then it also applies that markup to that viewpoint. And what you can do from here is, say if you want to give them a report, you can delete all these, export out reports of the viewpoints, but you can also send them. You can save this NWD. Maybe you delete all these and do a save as, save this NWD out, and then send them an NWD where when they open up the save viewpoints, they only see the markups. Now, that brings me to another point is, if you do have these in here, and you want to keep them in there before you send them, or you want to organize markups for your own team. So let's just come over here and apply another markup. So we have a couple markups here. Let's draw one more. In the cloud one, you have to do the first point, and then your second point is the arch in the cloud, and then when you're done, just escape out of it, and it'll finish the cloud for you. All right, so we have a number of markups here, and what we can do from here in these viewpoints is group them together in a folder. So it's really easy to do. So we can take this viewpoint 3, and then all we have to do is come over here and drag it on top of the other viewpoint. Oops, sorry. We right click. So let's you would right click and then come into here and create a new folder. And we'll say, something like markups. And then in that viewpoint, we can come into here, drag this over by, grabbing the viewpoint and then pulling it down on top of the markups folder and then dropping it in there. So now we can collapse that markups folder. We have all our viewpoints organized. We can quickly jump to these. Now, I would recommend, when you go into these, give them some type of defined name so that people know quickly what's kind of going on there. So somebody can come in here, click on this and know exactly what it is. You can even give it numbers. Something else, you can treat this as your own, apply this into your template, have a typical markups folder. So maybe have this folder and then within there a subfolder, just with a date. Oops. And this, you can see here, this folder can be dropped into it. So now you have a subfolder within that folder. We can drop those viewpoints into that folder. So now, we can give this today's date. What was that? First. So, in every single folder in here is a new date. So you can come in here and say, hey, we've taken care of these. You can delete them or just by knowing that there's a later date, that those are the ones that you need to take care of. But it's just another way to kind of organize that information. So you can treat this as your own, organize it however way you like. It has some flexibility in there. So yeah. Hopefully this kind of gets you up and running with viewpoints. There's a lot of things you can do when you're preparing for meetings or when you're creating that model initially, getting in there and creating those first 4 viewpoints so that your everyday users can quickly jump and navigate to those different views. Having those different views within the building, so like the cafe, Ice Rock Cafe, the bar, allowing folks to just quickly jump to those views so they can, start to talk about them or navigate to them a little bit quicker than manually flying through it. So there's a variety of different things that you can do with this. One more thing to mention is when you set up, and we're not going to go into this, but when you set up clash detection and you run your clash test, you can export out that clash report as viewpoints. So that is another thing along with viewpoints. Now, we're not going to be jumping into that, but keep that in mind. That's an option as well. And you can divide those up into folders and keep that organized just like we did with the markups here. So viewpoints are a huge thing within Navisworks. So I hope this kind of gets you up and running with viewpoints. Let me know if you have any questions or if I missed anything, and I appreciate your time. Thanks a lot, guys. See you in the next video.